Welcome back to the Irresistible Leadership Podcast. I'm Keith Turner Jr., Senior Advisor at Andrus Advisory and leader of the RightSeat search team. Today, I'm joined again by Sheldon Andrus, founder and CEO, where we help organizations get clear so they can grow faster. Today, we're talking about one of the biggest tensions churches face when hiring staff: compensation. Churches need strong, capable leaders, but they rarely have the ability to compete with corporate salaries. So the question many pastors eventually face, Sheldon, is how do you hire great leaders when your salary range is limited? Very, very touchy topic, but very necessary, right? We got to talk about the necessary things. So here's the question, Sheldon. How should pastors think about hiring when they know their salary ranges are limited?
Yeah, this is a great question, Keith. And I think it's probably the quiet question.
Right.
It's definitely the quiet question when we talk to pastors and when we're hearing their vision for where they want to go. Let's reject the premise of the question first, rhetorically, right? When I say reject the premise of the question, here's a great thought just to start this conversation. We should hold off on staffing and hiring until we're clear on our financial picture. So the premise of the question says that how do you bring on staff when you are in a limited budget? Well, you don't. You don't bring on staff when you're in a limited budget. You need to have allocated for that expense.
Sure.
At its absolute emotional core, bringing on a staff person is the assumption of liability of their financial picture. And obviously we're not going to be cavalier or unwise in that decision. And we'll help you guide that. It's part of our what we're called to do, right? It's help you think through, hey, what are you going to pay this person? Have we accumulated that? Have we thought through that? Now, if this is your first time on Irresistible Leader, or maybe you're not familiar with our framework, one of the things we advise churches and pastors all the time is that their total staffing budget, the total money from their budget, because you're leading your church with a budget.
That's right.
Is based on 30 to 35% of your total revenue.
Yep.
So just if you are a $300,000 a year church, your total salary cap, if you will, would be somewhere around, what is that, 90,000 for
roughly.
the year. And so obviously you and I both know, we're both in ministry, churches don't have unlimited budgets.
Correct.
But they do have unlimited wisdom.
Yeah. Hopefully, prayerfully.
They have access to unlimited wisdom.
We got access,
both the Holy Spirit and the multitude of counsel. But are you using
Are you accessing
it?
Right? Is it just you, or are you flowing from God?
Which is why you have to have trusted counsel in this hiring process, because you can get yourself, leading solo is always dangerous. Isolation is always dangerous. So 30 to 35% of your annual budget set aside for salary. Okay, so now that we've done that, we've addressed the premise of the question, which is how do you hire when you have a limited budget? Now, this is going to be a fun conversation because we're going to jump into a couple different places. But along that more philosophical train of thought is the reality that, and hear me, listen to this, is that purpose is currency.
Tell us a little bit more.
So everyone you hire is looking to step into a level of purpose.
Yeah.
As such, pastor, hear me, don't discount purpose from their salary.
Sure.
So a lot of pastors say no before they ask the question to the person, right? So if I have a decent job and I'm working it, but I'm not fulfilled, I will, watch this, a lot of people who have a heart and a burden for ministry will take a pay cut.
Not major. Yes,
no, well, you'd be surprised. You'd actually be shocked. I would say not major because that's wisdom. But there are a lot of people who will adjust their understanding and their budgetary design to pursue what is their calling.
Fulfilling. Yes.
Purpose is currency. People trade, they make decisions based on purpose. And the reason I know this is because this is my life. This is your life. There are things that we do where we say, hey, it is more advantageous for me to walk in a level of purpose than it is for me to be financially in a different bracket, right? And now let's pause. Let's pause this whole conversation and let's talk to the staff person overhearing this conversation, because it would be unfair for us to have this conversation with leaders but not address the elephant in the room. And that is, to every staff person who's saying, hey, or aspiring staff person, hey, I want to be on a church staff. I want to work in full-time ministry. Let me and Keith highlight from you right now and let's save you the inevitable stress. Your inability to manage your finances is not solved by working in ministry.
That's
so you can be a broke school teacher, you can be a broke project manager, you can be a broke nurse. You can also be a broke kids director, a broke operations pastor, and a broke executive pastor. Your ability to have a budget, live beneath your means, save, and tithe does not come from working in ministry. It comes from the natural muscle of being a human being and being balanced in life. And so I say that to say ministry does not cure your financial discipline.
Not at all.
It exposes it. Right? Because in ministry, you will find more opportunities to be generous. You will see more need. You will have more opportunity to socialize and be out there. What you wear to work matters. You have to get dressed every Sunday. So now your desire to quote unquote keep up with the Joneses, all right? You know that idea? It is exposed. So I say to every ministry person who's thinking, to every aspiring full-time ministry person, let's just caveat this conversation. I'm glad you're here for this conversation, but let's caveat it to say, hey, you can be in ministry. You can have a very successful financial life. You will not experience that different in ministry than you would experience at any other job that you will have, right?
Every season needs systems. You still got to have a system that will function and help you get to that spot. And a lot of us need that systematic change, right, to really get where we need to be. Yeah, for sure.
I think so we're having fun here. So we started off with saying, hey, let's right size our budget expectation to know exactly what we can pay. So we don't have a limited budget. We know exactly what we can pay for this role. Now, the question is the person we're finding, are they sober, right? Do they have sober judgment that this is what this role will pay. This is what it means for your standard of living, your quality of life, or the budgetary picture photo you have to have in your mind. Last but not least, when pastors are trying to hire, there are a lot of benefits outside of the actual gross salary number that ministry affords. And I think pastors specifically don't do a great job at creating what the corporate world calls a benefits package.
Talk to me about the benefits.
And hear me. It's not bad to talk in this term. You are in a corporate space now, right? So purpose, great. Salary, you already admit it's not. I can't pay you what a for-profit will pay you. By the way, nonprofits and ministries have different pay scales than corporate world, right? You cannot go from Apple like Keith, 10 years like Keith, and step into church and say, I'm going to make the exact same thing. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Let's just temper our judgment and temper our soberness. So as long as you're doing that, pastors, we do have a responsibility as we're recruiting high capacity staff, especially ones who have been in the corporate space, to show them that there are significant ministry financial advantages that you should consider in addition to your base compensation. What do those look like, Sheldon? Okay, well, here's just a few. First of all, the parsonage allowance. If you don't know what the housing allowance is, pastors, we got to get you connected with some of our financial services team who will help you understand how this tax implication for your staff is a big deal for your licensed and ordained ministers who are coming on, right? The parsonage allowance allows a part of your part of your living expenses to become tax exempt, therefore increasing your amount of take-home pay. So, this is something that you only get in ministry, right? You cannot have a parsonage or housing allowance in
other
corporate
spaces,
America, or the corporate workplace. So that's one. If anything, I would say I'm going in order of priority. That's a really big one. That changes while my top line may not look like what I was making in corporate space. That one there will get me.
It will help.
It will get me. It will start moving.
Listen, if you ain't got no mortgage, hello, right?
It makes you really good. Churches also provide opportunity for personal development, and if you're in a denominational space or a network of churches, there's also really good opportunity to surface additional advanced degrees and that ability at a discounted cost if you have those in your network. Continuing education. One of the big ones, Keith, hear me, for a man who has 2 kids under the age of 6, childcare.
Help me.
A lot of churches, a lot of growing churches are either tangentially related or have a childcare facility within their ministry operation. It's a way to bring revenue to the church. It's a phenomenal benefit package to add that to pay, because well as I know, in America, childcare could be as much as your mortgage. And so watch this. Parsonage allowance and childcare alone can cut a person's salary by 30 to 40% and still have them taking home the same amount of money. So these are real things that I would think when you're saying, hey, Sheldon, I want to bring on industry level professionals to help me build this kingdom of God, which doesn't sound bad. We love that kind of talk here at Andrus Advisory, right? We want industry standard professionals, ladies and gentlemen. I just want you to know, we're not making this up. Industry standard professionals to come and join our team so that we can be really good at accomplishing this mission. You're going to have to get savvy, creative, and wise on how you present the difference in ministry compensation versus marketplace compensation.
This brings up a really good point, because I think about the importance of pastors and churches really stewarding their resources well, right? In the sense of, like, if you have land, keep that land as much as you can, right? If you have a home to where a pastor can come in, not have to pay any mortgage, and then you can talk, right? But I think when I think about, like, the Good Samaritan, one of the things that I heard many years ago that really, like, blew my mind is that there can't be a Good Samaritan without there being a good steward.
Come on, sir.
So you have to be able to steward what you have in order to be a blessing to others, right? And so I think that's really a call for our pastors and our ministry leaders to really think about the resources God has blessed them with, so that way they do have the ability to bring on good talent. They do have the ability to keep kind of leading forward that way. So when compensation isn't aligned with the responsibility of the role, right? What kind of leadership challenges do churches kind of experience in that space?
So your question is assuming, I love this thought. This question is assuming, hey, I need that role and I've identified the person and they said yes, but I'm ultimately paying them a number that is beneath what both they and I feel comfortable with. I would wave you off of that like a red flag, huge red flag. And it may not, hear me, pastors, this is where we have to be careful with people's godly ambition, right? Because everyone wants to make an impact. There's not a single person who wakes up in the morning saying, I want to be completely ineffective and don't want to change anything, right?
Just sit down and watch TV all day. That's it.
Hear me. There may be those people. Please don't hire those people, by the way. Don't pay them. Now, I say that to say that in a person's pursuit of God, it's the parable where Jesus encounters a rich man and he says, hey, leave all your stuff. This is Jesus talking. This is Jesus talking. So when Jesus says, leave all your stuff, I think it's a pretty safe bet. 99, 148, 58% Jesus is going to deliver on his promise.
That's right.
You're not Jesus. Don't tell a rich man to leave all of his stuff, because you are now responsible for the cataclysmic damage that results from both him, his family, and his legacy. You have to use wisdom and ensure. I know in my personal space, those of you who know, who've been following my story, I've been an executive pastor at some of America's fastest growing and largest churches. And I've had to have really hard conversations with very accomplished people. I'm talking about lawyers and doctors and engineers who say, Sheldon, I went to school for a long time to get this degree, but nothing makes me come alive like serving in kids ministry. That is why I know God put me on the earth. Yes, here's the deal. God gave you a very unique set of skills to grow and advance the kingdom. He also gave you a passion for the kingdom. Those two things are not at war with each other. And it would be unwise in this season for you to leave that six-figure job to take a low $50,000 job in order to walk in purpose. There's got to be a way for you to do both of these at the same time. Now, I would say to that person who is just adamant, because you know these people, they're just adamant, Pastor, I really want to do it. Let me add it. Give me, I'll take the pay cut by 50%. It is not unhealthy to then paint a real picture for what life, that's pastoring, right? Pastoring is not all love, grace, and hugs. It is, the shepherd has a stick for a reason. It is to correct and to guide. And my rod and my staff. Yes, my rod and my staff. And there's a real reality that we have to have some frank and honest conversations with ambitious ministry leaders who want to step into full-time spaces and say, hey, here's what the reality of life will look like if you take it. It doesn't mean, hear me, God will provide. God is gracious. He'll give you grace in every season, especially when you're sacrificing for his kingdom. But let's just be clear, the way you eat out now cannot be the way you eat out if you do
this. You can't eat at Ruth Chris every night.
The way you dress now, Zara, you like some nicer Italian things. Zara, Forever 21, hear me, those are great brands, but they may be your more normal, and you're going to have to, and I think it is healthy that we set honest and healthy expectations for people who are taking that cut. Now, let me get to your actual question, because you said, Sheldon, what happens when I hire a person beneath their pay? You and I both know when you take on a role and you pay a person less than what they feel comfortable with and what you feel comfortable with, you almost start a clock.
Yep, pretty much.
You not almost, you inevitably start a clock.
Yep.
Within 6 to 8 months, you're going to start hearing the first conversation about pay increase, bonuses. How can this look different? Within a year, I think the statistic is something like 70% of those people are not on your staff within a year. I would wave you off of that. And here's how you know. Here's an indicator, or maybe a series of indicators that you know that you have hired a person beneath their pay band. One, they're constantly looking for other opportunities to make money. Their constant stressor in your pastoral relationship with them is money. I'm trying to make this need. I'm trying to meet this end. And I think as a pastor, watch this, you can't lead people that you need. That's why it's so important that you're willing to release them back into the marketplace or back into their next career, and trust that God will send you the next person, because you will keep a person, because of their relationship with you, because of their calling, you'll keep the person in a form of bondage. And I know that sounds really dark, but it's the idea of, hey, do ministry and live like this, but you know that thing is causing them a great amount of stress, tension, frustration. That's one. They'll always be constant. Two, you will notice that their work product is lacking because they're not coming to work every day excited to lean into the hard and the fun and the work of ministry. By the way, ministry's work. I don't know if you may be listening to this conversation, you're like, whoa, full-time church staff, that sounds fun. They must sit around and pray and read the Bible. No, it's the same thing you do at your job, exactly, right? It is project management, it's event planning, it's people management, it's development, it is cleaning the church, it's mopping the church. It's like, it is a physical, it's demanding, involved job.
But then it involves also the spiritual weight.
And the spiritual warfare.
And warfare of
which is a secondary, which is never on a job description, but is absolutely present in every single job. And so because of that, you will notice that when you are paying a person beneath what their wage requires, you will notice a quiet, simmering frustration. It'll look like being short. It'll look like deprioritizing the work, right? Being late, not short. You'll start to see these moments. And Pastor, it's a healthy thing to say, maybe it's not all them, right? Maybe it is this compensation structure I created around their life does not allow for them to show up in their best selves. So, and at the end of the day, when you are then, here's the third signal, that you've hired beneath a person's pay grade, is you are now actively carrying the weight that you paid them to do, right? So, hey, I know I'm not paying you enough, so I'll take on that. Hey, I know I'm not going to call you. And the second you start doing that, you're almost reversing the benefit of the investment, right? It is, hey, the church is investing in this person to come and build our mission. And the second the pastor starts taking back on the weight, I'm now slowing down our ability to execute. So I think those are three. I'm kind of laying a foundation for, hey, don't go down that road at all. Let's ensure that before you hire, that you are clear on the pay grade and the pay structure, the total benefits package, and that you've not hired a upper six-figure corporate employee who's now taking a drastic pay cut to step into ministry.
And may even be willing to move.
Yes, willing to move, but you haven't, hear me, and all that's righteous. However, you have to help them count the cost out loud.
That's right.
Because ministry ambition causes blindsidedness. And so the desire to be effective in ministry and listen to what you're saying and be effective on behalf of God makes people do things that they would not normally do under normal wisdom circumstances. So as a pastor, you have to help navigate that with them early on, because at the end of the day, you are their pastor. And so if not you, then who?
I think you touched on something that's important, because I do think that it's important to kind of consider the fact that people are not just gifted to only work in church, right? You talked about, sending them back out into the marketplace, and sometimes they need to be in the marketplace. And then also the marketplace often prepares us, like myself, for what ministry calls to,
for great ministry.
Right? And so, like, both of those things are super important. So let's talk to some of those leaders who have those really tight, limited budgets, right? What are some creative ways that they can build those strong teams while having limited resources, right? Outside of, God's going to be God, right? But how can we, in the natural, kind of be creative in those spaces?
It's really good. I think all of building the church is a creative enterprise, right? It's never 0 to 100. It's never perfectly cookie cutter. You know this, Pastor, right? Yeah, God doesn't send you anything pre-made. He says, I'm sending you to a land. Which one, Lord? I'm sending you. That's all you. You
got to start building. Start right. And you get instructions as you go, right? As you go.
You go.
Right.
That is it. We serve an as you go God.
Pretty much.
That's why the Bible says that the steps of the righteous are ordered So you got to take steps.
You're right,
You know what
exactly.
I'm saying? So in order to get to be righteous and be ordered, you have to take steps.
Right, like God ain't giving you the full blueprint when it's like stop expecting that.
He never does.
He will give you like, hey, get out of the water, then start walking,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely, step by step. Here's a couple that I think we find a lot when we start having these conversations with pastors around staffing. First is to develop their internal team. Right. I've said this in other episodes. I'll say it now, just in case it's your first time tuning in. Our goal as leaders is not to build productions or programming or experiences. It is to build people. We are in the people making business. God is in the people creation business. His highest priority is people. That's why he sent his son, Jesus, to die on the cross on behalf of people. And so I say that to say your first and urgent priority as a leader, as a pastor, as a leadership team is what is the current state of our internal leadership team? Because hiring does not solve the problem.
No, sir.
It exposes the problem.
That's right.
Hiring is a solution to a problem. The problem is we need to develop leaders. God is very clear that he gives us the fivefold ministry for the equipping of the saints for the work of ministry. So the real hard question before you start talking about creative ways to staff is the first simplest and most creative way to staff is to develop the people that God has sent you. People are not the tools to accomplish your mission. People are the mission. And so if you're focusing on developing the people, you're accomplishing the mission. So that's first. Second is think about hiring, especially if you're early on in this process, right? As a phased approach, right? I think I say this even as an executive pastor, I say this all the time. It is responsibility before role. Let me see if you can carry this before I put a title on it, right? And so maybe you're at a place where you're stretching and you have an opportunity and you've identified a person. They're not ready to go full time and you're not ready to pay them full time. Start them part time. Hey, let's do this for 15 hours a week. Here's what, and watch this, because clarity is kindness and to be unclear is to be unkind. I'm going to be incredibly clear about what that 15 hours is going to produce. And I'm as a leader, I'm going to try to be really sensitive to the fact that you only signed up for 15 hours, right? And so I would say phase the role in, go to 15 to 20 hours per week, give clear KPIs, key performance indicators of where the role should be moving and what they should be doing, what kind of, and then set a real verbal out loud agreement. Hey, when we hit this marker, let's rehab this conversation to see where this role is landing. If you're still wanting to do it, and if we still want you to do it, if we still want you to do it, we can consider a conversation about a full-time hire.
Yeah, and I think that's important because I think one of the things that I approach as a pastoral leader is I don't do verbal agreements in the sense it's like everything is written down, because when I have things written down, there is no gray area. It's like, hey, are you meeting this or are you not? And I think a lot more people would be successful and probably have better relationships, not friendship ending or whatnot, if they actually developed it, put it down on paper, and said, okay, hey, here's how we're going to move forward, right? So you talked about developing internal leaders. You talked about kind of phasing. And then you're probably going to be talking a little bit about some fractional or combining roles strategically, right?
As what we're seeing across churches of a specific size, hear me, I'm going to use numbers, but don't let these numbers freak you out. These are just generalities. Around that 400, 500, and 600 mark is they're at the precipice of needing to bring on some really high level talent, right? Because once you start talking about a 300 or 400 member church, you're talking about a significant movement.
Right.
But to think about this idea of fractional leadership, right? And so these are people who have high-end skill. You can't fully pay to be on your team yet, but they're willing to devote a portion of their time to function at that level. So think about fractional executive pastoring, fractional CFO servicing, fractional HR servicing like we do through RightSeat. This is the idea that, hey, I know I need an HR leader. I know I need a financial leader. I know I need an executive pastor. I cannot quite take on that burden, but oftentimes you will get pretty close to the same execution in a fractional role for a third of the cost of what you were going to pay that person. So whatever those numbers look like for you, which will move your vision along faster towards being able to bring that person on full time.
Yeah. And then I think one of the biggest, of course, is clarifying the seat before hiring. Right. I mean, there's got to be very clear, expectations, like you say, KPIs, and also talk briefly on, clarifying that seat. That's some of the work that we do with RightSeat, and how that will really help you, push the envelope forward.
Yeah, I think the reason we call it RightSeat is, you've all heard the euphemism, is you want to have the right people in the right seat on the bus to get to where you're going. And when you get where you're going, you want to look back and still see the right people are on the bus. I think for us, because we function in this space of organizational clarity and making sure that organizations function in their clearest form so that they can grow faster, we're constantly not just we're constantly not just evaluating the people, we're evaluating the organization in which the people exist. Remember, I say this all the time, people are interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them, right? So when they're like, hey, come join our team, it's like, whoa, let me see what you say team, how does that look?
Is it healthy?
Is it healthy? Is it toxic? What is it? And so we're constantly having this conversation of, hey, before we put the job on Indeed, Monster, LinkedIn, whatever, before we post something to our church's website, if that role were to appear tomorrow, are we clear about exactly what part of the mission they're going to move forward? And Keith, you and I both know you would be shocked to hear that most hiring is done from a reactionary role of that's an empty spot on our org chart, so let's fill it. Right. Versus is our org chart designed to support that person's success once we have them, right? And so a lot of our time we spend making sure that leaders and their churches, leaders and their organizations, boards of directors and leadership teams are clear on, hey, yeah, we know we need a really great next gen pastor, but is our next gen philosophy system clear enough so that when that person does inevitably come into the role, that they are set up for success? Because we want to have the right people in the right seats.
Right people, right seats. So it makes me think about, how oftentimes the idea is like, oh, I want more. God bless me with more. Enlarge my territory. But do you have the systems in place to be prepared 100%. For that, right? 100%. Because if you don't, they're going to come in and you're going to be like, oh, God answered the prayers. And then they're going to walk back out because you don't have the right systems in place. So you built this document, this guide, if you will, from your experience, from your research. I believe it's brilliant.
Thank you.
So let's talk about, what you put through for the Executive Pastor Compensation Guide and how that can really be beneficial for some of our leaders.
It's good. There's a lot in there. And by the way, if you want to access, it's a free guide that we created. Yeah, absolutely free game. You can download it right now. It's in the show notes. You can go to andrusadvisory.com and check that out. But one of the things that I found as we were talking, especially specifically around executive pastors. Now, I know some of you may be new to the channel. You're like, what's an executive pastor? An executive pastor is a number two. So you have your senior pastor responsible for culture and vision, and then you have the number two walking alongside, supporting that senior pastor on all things operational. So think leadership development, logistics, facilities, finance, staffing, execution, budgetary management, ministry operation, all the things that make the ministry happen, right? These are the executors of the vision at the highest level on side of the pastor. Historically, we've called these associate pastors, assistant pastors, elders, even if you go all the way back, deacons, and so as churches become more corporate, and we've gotten them, as churches are moving towards a more corporate finish, and we've gotten more systematized and systematic in our approach to ministry, we are finding that executive pastoring, XPs or EPs, depending on what context you're in, have come alongside. Now, the reason we created a guide for them is because there was a lot of gray area. And there's a lot of confusion about exactly, what does an executive pastor do? So the guide first clarifies their roles, their responsibilities, helps pastors, leadership teams understand, hey, if we're going to hire an executive pastor, what does that look like?
Absolutely.
What do they do? What lanes do they function in? Now, there's not one type of executive pastor.
Yes.
They are as varied as there are senior pastors, right? There's not one type of senior pastor, although there's one primary objective for them, but there is multiple types. You can have finance types, you can have ministry-focused types, you could have straight facilities types, right? Executive pastors that come and help you build the physical plan of the church. They range in the gamut. But then after we help you understand what an executive pastor is, the second part of the guide helps you understand how to align, there's a matrix, how to align that person's skill set with the size of your church, with the compensation expected, obviously adjusted for cost of living and all that stuff across the country. Because here's the deal, most times when you're looking for an executive, you're looking for one of two people. You're looking for a high capacity ministry operator already functioning in ministry, or what you and I agree is absolutely one of the best versions of an executive pastor is a person functioning at a high level in the corporate space, like yourself, like myself, who want to find purpose, meaning, and belonging in the local church. And so they're willing to cross over from marketplace into ministry and help support a pastor in executing the vision. And when we find those, there is a real reality that because there's so much corporate experience, corporate background, and corporate pay structure, that we're trying to help pastors close the loop faster on bridging that expectation and that pay. So the Executive Pastor Compensation Guide is a great place to start. If you're trying to understand, if you're a board team and you're trying to understand how to bring on an executive, you see that your senior pastor needs help and you're considering it.
Right.
If you're a senior pastor and you're like, I need help at the highest level.
Right.
It's a great place to start to say, okay, what am I going to be paying for one? How do I clarify their role? And what kind of executive pastor do we need? Because the word executive pastor is a broad generality for a lot of types of number 2 leaders.
Right. But they're literally so important that literally getting from vision to execution is where we find those executive pastors.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's how we can see vision, become reality without pastors being burnt out, without volunteers and others being burnt out, because you now have another person that's kind of in the gap, if you were in that middle. So really briefly, can we just talk really quickly to those who are struggling with the idea of, like, you've been talking about how churches have gone into the, the marketplace type of strategies. They're like, well, shouldn't we all just be about, loving Jesus and serving Jesus? Like, yes, but we can have systems and all that really bring that vision forward and impact other people, right? Because we're not all just reaching, people who are, just within our vicinity. Like, we're talking about having a mass reach now where people are really being impacted by what the Lord has called us to. Yeah,
I think when I hear those types of refrains, I used to, in my younger days, would roll my eyes, right? Like, okay, you know better. But I think the reality is what you and I do exists at a level within the church that is not aspirational. It's completely attainable, but it's not for everybody, right? We solve a very specific need, and the fact that you're still listening to this conversation, we're probably in your need, right? But we speak to a very specific part of the ministry operations and execution phase, right? The churches we're working with, the churches that God is, connecting us with, they share a lot of commonalities, and some of them being they desire more systems than spontaneity.
Yes.
That they desire to see a metric-based effectiveness to their ministry.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're only about the numbers, but the numbers mean something to them.
They do matter, right.
So one pastor told me, we count people because people count, right?
Yes.
And so the idea, that's also biblical, right? Jesus leaves the 99 for the one. Well, how did he know there was 100?
Right.
Somebody was counting, right? And so I say that to say, we're typically working with metrically minded ministries. We're also working with ambitious leaders, men and women of God who say that I want to, like, I love this. Men and women of God who say, I want to be good at this. I want to be not just effective, I want to be good at this. And where else in the world is it not celebrated that a leader of an organization wants to be good at it?
It's not all pride. Not all pride.
Not pride. I want to be good at this. Pastor, hear me. That desire in your heart to say, I want to do ministry, but I also want to do this really, really well.
Absolutely.
That's God given. The Bible says God gives us the desire of our heart. That desire to be good at this is God sent. And so we're not talking when I'm confronted with ministry leaders, pastors who say, I don't believe in that corporate church thing, I say, hey, that's not a problem. I just know that's not who God is connecting me with. There are far more people that I find who are like, hey, Sheldon, I want everything. I see the picture you're painting for churches, and I see that what you and Keith are doing is relates to staffing and team development, and that resounds with me. Those are the people God has called us to. And so we don't. I used to, again, in my younger days, I would roll my eyes and want to argue. Now it's like, hey, I completely. One day you're gonna call back and you say, hey, I get it now. I'm ready to take that next leap. I want to see my church experience that next level of success. I want to be that much more effective in my ministry, and that's when our phones connect and that text message comes back around. So Bible tells us seed time and harvest. So there's a harvest coming eventually. So I don't even stress about it. But it does. But our work does exist in a very specific area for a specific church having a specific need. And when you hear that, reach out. We're ready to work.
Absolutely, Sheldon. So if your church is thinking about hiring an executive leader, one of the hardest parts of that process is understanding what compensation should actually look like. That's exactly why we created the Executive Pastor Compensation Guide, to give churches real benchmarks around salary ranges, role expectations, and how compensation typically aligns with church size and organizational complexity. You can download that guide to start bringing clarity to the compensation guide side of the conversation. And if your church needs help beyond that, That's exactly why we built the RightSeat hiring team at Andrus Advisory. RightSeat is designed to help churches do more than just post a job and hope the right candidate appears. Our team partners with churches through the entire process. We help you define the leadership seat your organization actually needs, recruit candidates who fit that role, and guide the entire interview and onboarding process. We also help churches navigate the salary negotiation phase, which is often one of the most difficult parts of hiring well. And unlike traditional recruiting firms, our partnership doesn't just end when the candidate accepts the job. Every RightSeat placement comes with a 12-month guarantee, including monthly check-ins and coaching for the candidate to help ensure they succeed in the role. If your church is exploring a leadership hire, you can download the compensation guide and start a conversation with our team at www.andrusadvisory.com/rightseat.